learners, thank you for tuning in today for our math literacy class on probability predictions. Did you know that when we often make statements like, I am sure it will never happen, I have no chance of winning the prize, or it might not rain today, each of these statements tries to predict the future. This is called probability. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to work with situations involving games of coins and dice, work with weather predictions, and also identify events and outcomes. The conceptual map that we're going to look at is probability. We're going to look at probability. We're going to look at how do we express probability and also how do we determine probability. You should know how to work with fractions, decimals, and percentages, and also be able to round off. The first question that we're going to practice on is express the following: 5/10 or 5 divided by 10 as a percentage. Now remember, percentage is always out of 100. So whenever we have to convert any amount or any figure to a percentage, then we'll have to multiply by 100. So when we express 5/10 or 5 divided by 10 as a percentage, we will say 5 divided by 10 multiplied by 100. Why? Because we are converting it to a percentage. So you take your calculator, you punch it through, you say 5 divided by 10, then you multiply by 100. What do you get? We're getting 50%. So this is 5 divided by 10 as a percentage, it's 50%. Then we go to the second question, 5 divided by 10 as a decimal number. So now we have to convert this fraction to a decimal number. So you can take your calculator and say 5 divided by 10, then you press your equal sign, it will give you 1/2. Then you go to the SD button where you are converting the fraction to a decimal number, which will give you 0/5, 0.5. So 5/10 in its simplest form, it's actually 1/2. Why do we say it's 1/2? Because 5 goes 2 times into 10 and it goes once into 5. So it's 1/2. But 1/2 is half. So what is half? It is actually 0.5. So this is 5 divided by 10 as a decimal number. The third question, 5 divided by 10 as a decimal number rounded off to a whole number. Now we've already solved it in our previous question. We said 5/10, it's equals to, in its simplest form, it is 1/2. So if we were to change it to a decimal number, then it becomes 0.5. Now the question says we must round it off to the nearest whole number. So it means we must remove the decimal points. So because it's 5 and above, or any number that is 5 and above, we have to add 1 to the number before it. Then it means from our decimal point, we'll add a 1 to the 0. So it becomes 1. It becomes 1. So when it's 1, it means as a whole number, it is actually 1 because there's only one decimal point and we want it as a whole number without any decimal points. So we have to convert it to 1. So you round it off to 1 because the number after the comma is actually 5. So if it was 4 and below, it will remain as 0. Then question 4, 0.5 as a common fraction. 0.5 as a common fraction. So with our previous knowledge on fractions, we know that this decimal point is a 10 actually. So if it's a 10, then it means it is to 1 decimal place. So it means the denominator will become 10. But what is the number after the denominator? It is actually 5. So it means it's 5/10, which is equals to 1/2. Why 1/2? Because the highest common factor is 5, which goes once in 5 and it goes twice in 10. So whenever you are dealing with common denominators, not common denominators, but when you are dealing with decimal numbers and you have to convert it to common fractions, then you have to look at the decimal points. At what decimal point is the number? If it's only at 1 decimal point, then you know that it will be divided by 10. And if ever it's 0, then it means it's divided by 10 because this decimal point will give you 1 and it will be divided by the number that is after the comma. The new words that we're going to look at the word probability. What does probability mean? It is the chance or the likelihood of an event happening. So this is where we say there is a chance that something will happen. It is the likelihood that something will happen. For an example, there is a 50% chance that it will rain tomorrow. So when it says 50% chance that it will rain, it means that there's another 50% chance that it might not rain, because percentage is always out of 100. Then we've got the word trial or experiment. Trial or experiment means an activity which involves observing and recording an event. So for an example, tossing a coin. So when you take your coin and you toss it, so you are actually experiencing an activity, then you will record the results that after tossing my coin, where did I land on? Did I land on a head or did I land on a tail? Event, this is a set of outcomes of a trial, For an example, heads and tails when tossing a coin. So whenever we toss a coin, we know that there are only two outcomes that we can get out of tossing a coin. So that outcome can either be a head or it can be a tail. The next word is frequency. This is the number of times an outcome has occurred. For an example, landing on a head 3 times after tossing a coin 5 times. So when you take your coin and you toss it 5 times, if ever you land on a head the first 3 times, then that head, the number of times that you've landed on that head will become the frequency of that outcome being landed on. For an example, if ever you toss your coin and maybe you land on a tail now for the first 3 times, then it means the tail now becomes the number of times you landed on that tail, that becomes the frequency of that outcome of a tail. Then we go to outcome. This is the result of an event or an activity. For an example, tossing a coin and landing on a head. So we know that whenever you toss a coin, there are only 2 possible outcomes, which is either a head or a tail. So when you toss a coin and it lands on a head, then you know that the head becomes the outcome, which is the result for that activity. Let's take a quick break and then we'll continue afterwards.